So definition of done is about the development team completing that particular story or feature from the point of view of coding, from the point of view of testing. They tested, unit tested, integration tested, module tested, system tested, blah, blah. Functional testing is done, automation testing is done, end-to-end testing is all done. Performance testing perhaps is required because it's just one feature and it's not the whole system ready. So that's all good. So this particular feature is now ready to be delivered as part of the release. So that's when it can be said as as done. And that definition of done, unless you agree, so they discuss as a team, within the team, even before we start the project, that's important. Even before we actually start the sprint, we would actually have the definition of done discussed. And then obviously there are a lot of discussions around, a lot of different points come through. And then all the team members would actually put forth their opinions. And then there's an agreement that is around, and then consensus is reached. And then that would actually be put in black and white, saying that this is the definition of done. So for example, the definition of done for the project that we were talking about, the mobile accessories website, could be that by the end of November, we want to have the release plan says we want to have the catalog ready, functionality ready. So that's the release plan. So with that in place, what we need to work back is by the end of this coming sprint, let's say the next sprint is actually going to finish by November 1st. So we're starting Monday, and then it is 2 weeks roughly. And then we'll say that it would finish off by the 30th, or the end of October. So if that were the case, that is a sprint, the upcoming sprint, and the definition of done for that sprint, considering the release plan of the goal of having the catalog as the main feature to be released, is we'll say that we'll have the items list completed. So catalog, basically the catalog of items. So that list of showing the list of all the items on the catalog in terms of either list view or thumbnail view, that is all that should be done. And then when you click on a particular item, it should open the item details page. So the product details page should be open, which actually shows only that product, the big image of the product, not thumbnail anymore, but big feature of that screen protector, maybe 2 or 3 images, scroll. And then you actually need to have a description of that, and you need to show which phones or the devices that particular feature, that item fits in, all of that details, the reviews of the item, blah, blah. So these are the two definitions of done that should be part of that. So when you say definition of done for the sprint, upcoming sprint, you say that I should have the item list page working and item details page working. Or we can decide later, the item details page can wait, but at least the item list page should work, and you should be able to actually show and toggle between the list view, the grid view. You should be able to toggle between the thumbnail view, and you should actually, when you click on the row, it should be opening the details page, just that much. So this should be done. This is done. So the definition of done is these 3 things must be done. When you say done, it should be developed, it should be done in coding, it should be tested. The unit testing has to be done. Integration testing has to be done on the server. It should be ready for the customer to have a look at it. The product owner should look at it. So it should be deployed on the server, on at least the development server. Right? So we were talking about development server, test server, and production server, right? So those 3 environments: development environment, testing environment, where you test, where you actually kind of do all kinds of things. It's working fine. A/B testing, everything could be done on that. And then your production or the live environment, where you actually put it for your customer. So the definition of done for this one, for this sprint, could be just the item list page to be developed, tested, and ready and deployed on the development environment. So at least the product owner could have a look at it. So that's your definition of done. That can be one of the examples of that. But make it sure that your definition of done is actually agreed upon even before we start the sprint on Monday. So by today, the end of today, Friday, all of us need to agree on this one and say commit to this, right? Because we need to, by this time, in fact, we should have estimated how much effort it would take to complete the items list page, what is involved, what is the size of that page, what is the scope of that work, how much effort is involved in designing, in having database, in pulling the data from the database and showing it on the front end. All these things, discussions should have happened, and we should have estimated, we should have come up with the stories. And we should say that, okay, roughly it takes about 70 story points for this piece of work for this sprint. and our capacity, the sprint velocity or capacity is basically 75 points. So we've got about roughly 3 developers, and we can actually achieve roughly about, we've got 75. So we can achieve this kind of a thing. That sense of comfort and confidence is what we should have by today, because we're going to start the sprint on Monday. So the sprint planning is already done. For example, today or yesterday, we had a sprint planning session. We discussed all these, and then we have got the definition of done clearly specified. Obviously, it was discussed, and we all agreed to that. We committed ourselves to that, and that's part of the sprint plan. So on Monday, the sprint is starting, so we all are good with that. And this done as what I was saying is this example I've already just discussed. It could mean that we complete the coding, which includes the HTML, for example, in this case of the site, the website, e-commerce website. We should write the front-end coding, the HTML. We should also have the coding to get the data from the database and show this. So there's some kind of back-end coding as well involved, perhaps. And then the code should have actually got the completed the acceptance testing as well. So it should meet the acceptance testing. It should also address all the acceptance criteria given when then the scenarios mentioned in the stories. It should meet all the acceptance criteria. Plus, it should also have the code review done by the senior architect, for example, of the team, and they should give the sign off saying, yes, this code is good quality, we can go ahead. So all of this must be done by the 30th of October, for example, so that we can finish the sprint and then move on to the next one. So that's the definition of done in that case. So it really depends. Again, there are different types of definitions, but then the point is, what is important is how the team collectively agrees to the definition of done as one, and then how they commit to that. That's important. So there are different criteria again. So one of that criteria could be that the story at the story level, each story or each feature could actually be complete in terms of coding. Testing is done. Testing could be, again, unit testing done by the developer and the functional testing done by the testing team. And then it should meet the acceptance criteria. It should satisfy all of them, whatever is the given when then the kind of Gherkin statements that we had already captured at the story level for each of the stories. So it should make all of them, it should complete and satisfy them. And then it should have a regression. Again, if you talk about regression testing, very critical for Agile, because we are at such a huge, fast pace that we tend to miss actually the big picture. So when we deliver this, for example, in this context of the mobile e-commerce website for selling mobile accessories, if we go ahead with the November release, we went ahead with that. We delivered the cart, we delivered the catalog page with the item list and the item details pages, the product details pages, right? And then after that, by February, we said we would have the next release coming up with the shopping cart functionality, when we can add the items there, and then you can change the items details, you can change the quantity of item, you can remove the thing from there, from the shopping cart. So all of this will be done by February is what we had agreed. So come, let's say January, we found that there are some things that went wrong with the catalog, how the item gets displayed in the catalog page, because we did something else to the other stories which are related to it. So when you try and deliver the shopping cart functionality, you should also check whether the catalog is working or not. You cannot ignore that. So when you deliver and deploy, when you deploy the code in the server in January for the shopping cart functionality, you should make sure that it is not going to have an impact on the already deployed code, already working code of the item details page and item list page. If it has some problem, then that's going to go kaput. You're actually not delivering incrementally. You're not actually building on the top of each other, but you're destroying whatever was working before and you're introducing something else, right? So regression testing is actually a very important tool for that. So what does regression testing mean? It means that whatever you've actually done before, you must also make sure that it is working all right, that it does not have any impact because you're introducing a new feature. Just because you've got the new shopping cart as a new feature that you're deploying and releasing, it should not disturb, and it should not affect the already working functionality of the item details and the list page. Similarly, by April, when you have completed the shopping cart and the catalog, when you're trying to have the payment processing, it should not have any impact. When paying by a credit card, that feature should not impact the already working features of the item list details page. You should only make sure that it is working better and better, not worse. So the regression testing for that one is, you should make sure all the item list page is working fine, item details pages are working fine, the photos are being shown fine. And when you click on the add to cart button, it is adding the item to the shopping cart. When you click on the checkout of the shopping cart, it's actually kind of taking you to the payment gateway or the provider's page. All of these should be working absolutely fine, just like how they were working before in the last 6-7 months. Just because you've introduced something new, it should not affect their working. So that's what is a regression testing. Very, very, very important for agile working. Again, as important as automation testing. Regression testing, automation testing, very critical for success with agile, because we've got such a short cycles of development. You're not really developing in 2 years like in the waterfall we discussed. We're actually delivering things in like 2 weeks and 2 weeks period of time. So it's important we actually make sure that what you're delivering now is not going to impact what we have done in the last 3-4 sprints. So again, automation testing, regression testing, very critical for agile success. And obviously, as we discuss the feature associated with the stories, it's ready to be deployed. Basically, what we're talking about is it is potentially shippable. So come November 30th, after the end of, let's say, 2 sprints or 3 sprints, I am now in a position to deploy the whole build on the live environment for my customers to see, right? So it is not ready by October 30th. That's fine, because that's the end of the sprint, only the first sprint. And the first sprint is still only talking about the item list and the item details, but it's not really talking about 3D view and things like that, adding the item to the cart. So that is going to happen next sprint. So by the end of 3 sprints like that, you're incrementing and you're adding the functionality, and then you're completing the whole set of catalog feature as a feature, which is ready now to be shown and shared with the customers. So by November end, after the end of these 3 sprints, you can actually deploy that in the server, and they can actually get, hey, you know what, now we've got this functionality ready, have a go with this beta site. So they can actually start doing the shopping with just those pages. But you can always say, obviously in the release plan, you can say, just hold on. At the moment, we're not really accepting the payment, online payments. Please call us on this number or send an email with your cart. So you can actually create the cart, and then that page, you can actually say send mail. So that could actually be shared through the email to the sales team, and then say that I would like to actually make this, this is the item that I would like to have, send as an invoice, and we'll pay it through the bank transfer or the check or whatever, something else, because the payment is not yet done at the moment. So that's how we